Greetings, citizens! Justiguy has arrived. As some of you may or may not know, Blizzard's hit digital card game Hearthstone recently enjoyed the launch of its latest expansion, Kobolds and Catacombs. With the launch came new cards, new gameplay modes, new mechanics, and so on and so forth. All sorts of things for players to enjoy. Admittedly, I'm more of a Shadowverse kind of guy myself. I enjoy the game more, it's a lot more accessible, and I'm more of an anime guy, surprise, surprise. But I do dabble in Hearthstone too, and the new stuff's been alright. One of the things that makes Hearthstone in particular so interesting is how it brazenly takes advantage of the fact that it's a digital card game. It isn't tied to players having to have physical cards for them to pull off certain moves. If it wants to have a card that casts random spells, for example, it can have that. If it wants to have a card that turns players' decks into different ones, it can do that too. Hearthstone has happily embraced its nature as a digital card game. At times, perhaps to an extent, some players might certainly rather it didn't. Regardless, for much of the time, this has been dandy. One card in particular that was able to take full, super fun advantage of the game's digital nature was one of the heavily promoted Death Knight cards from the game's previous expansion. This card was Deathstalker Rexxar. This Hunter class card allowed players to combine two beast cards every turn into a new one that used elements of both. It wasn't a card that made new cards or anything like Yu-Gi-Oh's fusion mechanic. As far as how it works is concerned, it just copied the abilities of both cards being combined and let the new card have all of them. It was pretty nifty and allowed for some really cool combinations. And that brings us to today. There are lots of cards in the game that, through the magic of being able to just access the game's built-in database of cards, can pull up whatever card the game pleases. A card from a year ago with the effect Discover a Follower can discover one such beast from a set that released today, and it can discover one from the set it launched from last year. That's the beauty of the digital card game. Deathstalker Rexxar, however, is going to be an exception to this. With the latest expansion, the pool of followers its effect applies to was not increased to include the new applicable beasts. What's more, when the game set of standard expansions changes, the pool will actually decrease in size, as it currently contains cards that will no longer be allowed in standard play once the change occurs. Deathstalker Rexxar is a legendary card. That's the highest rarity possible in Hearthstone. It's one of the Death Knight cards that were heavily promoted in the last expansion and pushed as a part of the big new mechanic. This change, if you can call it that, puts the Hunter class at a distinct disadvantage against other classes whose Death Knight cards suffer from no such nerf, if you can call it that. Worse still, what happened was not telegraphed to Hearthstone players by Blizzard or any official piece of Hearthstone media. Some players might have gone out of their way to get this card before or even after the newest expansion launched, or as new cards were revealed. Cards that looked like they would work well with Deathstalker Rexxar. In fact, many of the new Hunter cards appear as though they would work incredibly well with Deathstalker Rexxar, to the point it almost seems like they were designed with working with it in mind. Yet the card itself was not updated for this new expansion, something that, to my knowledge, is unprecedented in the game. Worse than that, the precedent it sets is incredibly dangerous. It means they can just do this with other cards in the future, and given the rampant abuse of microtransactions present in Hearthstone thanks to our good friends at Blizzard and Activision, that's something that you really want to worry about. Because they're not just getting players to unlock these cards, they're getting players to spend money and time on them as well. In any case, players took to the community after discovering this anomaly with the card for themselves, and upon doing so, only then were they contacted by game representative Mike Denies. And well, the explanation they got for it is just kind of bizarre. Now I quote, "The challenge was not a coding one. You see, it was combining two text boxes into one across 15 languages. A lot of things that work okay in English don't work as well in other languages. When text is written for a card, it has very specific templates and line breaks and spacing to make it fit and look good. And some languages actually have different rules, and some, because it'll surprise you, they don't have to do Jesus Christ, man, write a comma or something." Wow, that was a long sentence. Well, there you go. Now, maybe this isn't true. Maybe they just hope people would assume that the card wasn't supposed to work with newer cards so they wouldn't have to put in the work. Maybe they just enjoy swimming in the pools of money this game makes them too much for them to bother to put in the effort that it would take to address this. Honestly, I don't know. The point is, apparently, even if we just take them at face value, that they'd rather have a card in a card game not work as it is described to, and as they're selling it if it means it wouldn't look nice. Come on. If the problem they're describing here really is so serious, I can already think of multiple workarounds, and plenty other players have as well. For me, I just make a new generic Zombies card design, and then make it so the abilities of the other cards are just tacked onto it like any other added effects are. It might take some tinkering, but it's better than, not updating the damn thing. No matter what, the idea that they want to do this to make the cards look nice and readable really doesn't fly when many of the game's cards have descriptions that don't make sense or require outside explanation to understand. In a lot of cases, you can't even hover over them to get further details. That's something that, as a digital card game, there is no excuse for. I'm pretty sure Kotaku even had an article about this the other day. And ironically, in Shadowverse, I can hover over a card to get its details. If it summons another card, I can get details about that other card, and if that card has things I should know, I'll be told about all of that as well. The way Hearthstone offers information is so odd. They're shooting for how the game looks, when above all else, they should be shooting for how the cards are understood. The mindset they're tackling all this with shouldn't even apply to physical card games, let alone digital ones. And again, that's me touching on this excuse for just the excuse itself and, saying, okay, maybe this is true. There are some bigger issues in play here that deserve mention as well. For starters, Hearthstone may be a free game, sure, but don't think the thing doesn't make money for Activision Blizzard by the barrelful. I wonder how much they made on just this latest expansion's $50 pre-orders alone. Free game indeed. Well, in any case, let's stick with just this Deathstalker Rexxar situation for the time being. When the previous expansion, Knights of the Frozen Throne, launched, Deathstalker Rexxar was the super special legendary Death Knight for the Hunter class for players to collect from the set. Lucky players might have gotten the card for free, as Blizzard, in all their graciousness, gave one Death Knight out from one randomly chosen class to players for playing the single-player part of the expansion. Now, this totally wasn't a way to just encourage players to buy packs and to have them interact with ones they didn't get for free to encourage them to buy more packs. This definitely was not what they were doing through this move. It was definitely not that. Nope, not the thing they did. This was them just being gracious and nice and letting players try out this new mechanic. It wasn't like they could have had players just choose the one they wanted or anything. They didn't have to do that. No, that would have been weird and wrong. Anyway, that's a 1 in 9 chance of getting Rexxar or any of the other ones for free. If you should happen to have wanted one of the other ones, or have wanted more than one, it's off to booster packs with you. And you know what that means! Gaming's earliest loot boxes! Or maybe not, dunno. In any case, you've got two ways to buy these, short of winning or being given packs through some game thing, and those don't really happen that often. The first way is to use in-game currency. It costs 100 gold for one pack of cards. You can earn 10 gold a day for winning 3 games, and you can do this for up to 10 times a day for up to 100 gold a day, but you need to grind and then win 30 games a day in order for just basically one pack of cards, and that's a whole lot. I mean, come on, even if you like the game, that's a lot. Luckily, you can also do your one daily quest for anywhere from 40 to 80 gold, so that's something. Of course, after a while, I bet you'll get fatigued of grinding gold like that, right? Tired of slaving away and still not being able to afford enough packs to get cards. Oh, if only there was an easier way. Luckily for you, your friends at Blizzard have given you the option to buy cards outright with your spare money. Who needs that? For $3, you can buy 2 packs. For $10, you can buy 7 packs. For $20, you can buy 15 packs. For $50, you can buy 40 packs. Lastly, for $70, you can buy 60 packs. Now, between you and me, I totally recommend that last option. Did you know that if you only get 2 packs, it's about 30 cents per card before you see how much it's really worth, that is? Whereas if you spend the $70, it's actually worth 23 cents per card. So you see, if you spend the $70 instead of $3, you're saving so much more money. Isn't money great? Anyway, now you know how you can get packs. Packs that hopefully would have led you to get your Deathstalker Rexxar. It's a great card, one of the most fun in the game, and it's a shining, zombie-generating example of what makes Hearthstone a really fun game. Despite my not even having it myself, it's really mechanics and cards like this one that have me coming over from Shadowverse in the first place. But wait! Just because you've got the gold and or money to buy the packs for your Rexxar, that actually doesn't mean you'll get him for sure. So, well, what are the odds? Well, to break it down, the odds of getting a legendary are roughly 1 in 20 packs. Yep, you heard me right. 1 in 20 packs. Roughly. Maybe. Luck is a thing, you know? Now, if you didn't get the card for free, here's a fun fact for you. While there are only 9 classes and so a total of 9 Death Knights, there are actually 23 legendary cards in Knights of the Frozen Throne. Taking away the one the game gives you for free if you play through the single-player portion that earns you that one, you will be pulling from a pool of 22 in the hopes of getting this one card. In other words, if you manage to be lucky enough to get 1 legend in every 20 packs, and that's in a best-case scenario, you could still be looking at spending upwards of $400 to get the entire set. Thankfully, you do have another option, citizens. If you just want one specific card, all you have to do is get rid of some other ones. By simply turning your other cards into dust, you can have whatever card you want. How does it work, you ask? It's easy. For every common card you get rid of, you get 5 dust. For every rare card, 20 dust. For every epic card, 100 dust. And if for whatever reason you don't want a legendary, you get 400 dust. Wow, that is a whole lot, isn't it? Now, how much does it take to actually make a card? To make a common, it costs 40 dust. To make a rare, it costs 100 dust. To make an epic, it costs 400 dust. And to make a legendary, it costs 1,600 dust. Amazing! Gosh golly gee willikers, that's not exactly 1-to-1, is it? Well, let's see. If you're willing to give up legendaries for it, then at the rate of 1 legendary every 20 packs, you're looking at about, I'd say, 80 packs? That's a lot. Alright, well, maybe epics, which that's gotta be easier. You get one of those every 5 packs, supposedly. No, actually, at that rate, you still need about 80 packs to have enough dust for a legendary. Okay, I guess what they're saying is a crafted legendary is worth about 80 packs. Alright. Although, I mean, the rare and commons are gonna add up too, so let's see. If you only use commons, then you'd need, that's 320 commons, so 80 packs again. Okay, 80 packs it is. So just never make one single other card on the way to making the one single legendary card you want. Because, I mean, it's not like you're supposed to have a deck of cards to use against another player in a card game or anything, right? That'd be silly. And enough of that. Too much sarcasm and people might not pick up on it. Now, you might want to know why I just went through all of that in the middle of a video about how Blizzard didn't update the pool of a card in the way they normally do. Well, think about what we just went over. Unless you were one of the lucky, let's say, 1 in 9 people who got the card in question from the single-player campaign, if you have the card, you probably went through either a lot of time or money in order to get it. If you're saving up money, booster packs, gold, dust, whatever for it, same thing. If we use Blizzard's own pricing scheme, by the math I admittedly just kind of half-assed over here, one legendary card is worth about $100 of booster pack. If you need to, now go back to the part of the video where I described what they did to this card and think about it in terms of a $100 product instead. If you'd rather, look at the links to the Hearthstone subreddit in the description where you'll see a ton of people bothered about this and think of it in terms of an $100 product instead of a free digital trading card. Because Blizzard likely made a great deal of money from players who have or would have been aiming for this one card even if every single one didn't spend $100 on it. Even from the players who got it for free, through them having it, they exposed it to other players, and those players then are going to want it themselves and aim for it. Because of how the ranking system in Hearthstone works, with everyone getting shot back down to the bottom every month, the players who have it and should be at the top are put back down to the bottom, and you get to expose that card to new players who are then going to want it themselves. Because see, the funny thing about that whole Activision patent mess is that that system has basically been in Hearthstone for ages now. And as far as this card is concerned, this is a card that, up until the launch of the new expansion a few days ago, for all intents and purposes, appeared like it should and would work with every other card with similar effects. There was no reason for players to think it would work any differently. You have players who, while watching Blizzard themselves reveal cards that were seemingly meant to work specifically with this very card, went ahead to start spending resources, either in-game or otherwise, on this card, all while Blizzard chose to keep their mouths shut on the fact that they weren't updating the thing. All while Blizzard didn't say anything until after they were essentially forced to do so. Some players are calling for a refund and dust, but I don't think that's right. That just feeds the Blizzard microtransaction machine and ultimately doesn't address the real problem. Will you get back what you put in if you get a dust refund? All the cards, time, money you put in for a product that not only turned out faulty, but a product they clearly had no intentions to even comment on until they were forced to? Blizzard was inconsistent with how their game worked, allowed people to spend time and likely a lot of money on it despite the fact that they were essentially doing so on a product that literally would not work as advertised, and then they came out with a half-baked excuse for why only once they were called out on it. If you ask me, there are only 2 things they can do here. First off, they need to fix the card. As far as that is concerned, there shouldn't even be a question. That shouldn't be up for debate. There shouldn't be discussion or idiotic excuses like, well, it would look bad. No one cares about how it would look, they want it to work. Second, they need to reevaluate how they're designing cards and the game as a whole going forward, because other cards have text inconsistencies, none this grave as far as I'm aware, and this can't be something they should allow to happen again. This speaks volumes to the company's arrogance, to how little they care about their community, their players. Sure, they're happily chatting and up on Reddit and letting streamers promote stuff for them. They're happy to see the esports stuff and all that take off. They're happy for that. But that's kind of the thing. They're cozying up to people, especially now, because they're promoting and they want people to buy their stuff, especially the new stuff. Now, I could go on and say how much better and cooler Shadowverse seems to be, stuff like this, but I do still recognize that it's still the same kind of PRD. At the very least, Shadowverse does have monthly card updates, gives players a ton of free stuff to do, and, it regularly interacts with its community to keep the game functioning, which is more than it feels like could be said about Hearthstone right now, but still, that is the same thing, to varying degrees, and giving it too much credit wouldn't be fair. So sorry, Shadowverse. Plus, Shadowverse is made by a company that made Grand Blue Fantasy, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the spawn of Satan, so yeah. So all in all, this was a pretty bad move by Activision Blizzard, and I think it's likely that they either have very backwards priorities or were just too busy swimming in their money pool to bother. Of course, that's just my take on it. So tell me, how about you, citizens? What do you make of all this? Do you think what Blizzard's doing here is acceptable? Do you think people should just shut up and enjoy the new cards? Does the fact that this is a card that's arguably, and we can use whatever other word you want for arguably, I'm not trying to say that I'm objectively right here, but does the fact that we're talking about a card that's worth debatably $100 change this at all? Personally, even without taking the potential time or money investment into account, I think no matter what, this is just a pretty low move, even before they tried to explain it, so right now it's just getting worse and worse for them. But then, what do I know? I am just a guy, after all. Well, let me know what you think, and don't forget to do all that good fancy pants YouTube stuff like liking, disliking, whatever floats your boat. I am open to all of it, and until we meet again, citizens, I'm afraid that this is fun.